to use my card.
Wait for it to start.
Bruce,
Yes.
you're pleased that I got your amendment for you?
Very pleased.
12, no.
Yeah, there are 26 for you.
It looks like it's live. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Town Council. Please note that the recording device is sensitive and the recording cannot be edited, so do not say anything you do not want recorded. If necessary, I will direct all recording in the room to be stopped, but generally I want to avoid doing that, so we will normally record everything except in any item taken in closed session. Members of the public may also make their own recordings but must follow our rules for doing so, including stopping recording when requested. Whilst we do not accept anonymous speaking at the public forum, members of the public who wish to speak but do not want their name published must please indicate this before saying your piece. Thank you. Okay, so item 1 on the agenda for today. Apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Crooks, Councillor Orla Fox, Councillor Miller-Jones and Councillor Stinchcombe.
Okay. We're going to put to the council that we accept those apologies. So if I can have a proposer for that, please. Councillor Smith and a seconder, Councillor Hanlon, and all in favour, please show. Thank you. Okay, so item 2, declaration of interest and requests for dispensations. Are there any? Item 3, minutes of the meeting of the Town Council held Monday the 27th of September. So if I can have a proposal to confirm the minutes of the Council, that's correct.
Yes, can I have a couple of amendments on those, please?
Sorry, there's a couple of amendments.
Yes, please, may I?
Okay.
Thank you. Can we go to Appendix 3? I haven't got a copy in front of me, I'm afraid, because I haven't got a printed copy here.
Okay, yeah.
On Appendix 3, where it quotes about the co-location of services, it should say included. I can't remember what it does say, but it should actually say included. And where it says Sarah Howard is invited, yes, she was, but not in relation to that subject. The person who was invited to talk about co-location of services from West Suffolk was Gary Norgate. But in addition, I requested that Lois Reith, although Lois has gone, it would be her substitute, Kate Morton and Sarah Howard was invited. But in relation to that particular item, the co-location, that's Gary Norgate that would be that, not Sarah Howard.
So could you just say exactly where these amendments need to go on? Which
I can't because I don't have a copy in front of me. I have to go and borrow John's computer to look it up. So it should be on the
I see.
3.
Sorry, we're looking at the wrong page. That's fine. So
And it should say included in the plan from West Suffolk Hospital is the co-location of services.
yeah.
And then it should say that Gary Norgate would be invited to discuss this, and then Sarah Howard, Lois Reith, who has now been replaced, and Kate Thornton were invited. So there's a bit of confusion on that particular element, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So can I have a proposal to accept those minutes with the amendments? Yep, Councillor Brown and then seconder Councillor Marks. Thank you. All those in favour? Yeah, that's one. Thank you.
That one. It's also in the freedom.
Oh yes, that was a separate one, wasn't it? So we do them separately?
Yeah.
Both those separately?
If it's this one, it's this.
Okay. So we've also got the minutes to the meeting that we held beforehand, if you like. It was for the freedom of the town. Yes, I've got those minutes as well. So can Does somebody want to propose those one? Councillor Burns and then seconded Councillor Smith. And all those in favour? Thank you. Thank you. Okay then, so item 4, to note progress of actions arising from the minutes not covered on the agenda. So the first item was the Festival of Suffolk, C21, and due to a misunderstanding on my behalf, I missed the date of that meeting. So I did have a word with Colin about this, and it seems to be that the general feeling was that this is just a rebranding of the big event that we might do next year as part of the Festival of Suffolk. But I will try and get some more information from the people that sent the invite out and see if they've got any more information that we can share. Thank you. Okay, so the next one was health matters. The town clerk.
Okay, so this was about the inviting the, those we just mentioned by Councillor Marks, the invitations to Kate Fortin and others. You'd have had my email letting me know the date of that. So if people can prepare questions, that'd be really great. That means that they can make sure they actually give answers. Otherwise, if you ask questions on the night, then they can say with.
Can I just ask about subject? It's a Zoom meeting, isn't it? A Zoom event. Are we going to have...
really struggling to hear you. Can you speak up?
Are we going to have members of the public?
I've gone back to Kate Thornton and asked whether or not members of the public can watch the meeting or not, or whether they're intending the content to be something that would be kind of private, but they can say more than they would say in public. And I'm waiting for a response on that.
Okay, sorry, I'll speak up a bit more. I should be able to, being a teacher. You okay? Yeah?
Bruce can hear that.
Okay, so the next... Sorry.
I understand it would be a public meeting where people, members of the public could raise their concern. Otherwise, it sounds like it's just going to be basically they're talking at us. I know they're going to have questions beforehand, but is that really what we were hoping for?
I wasn't asked to organise a public meeting. It may be a meeting in public, but I've never been asked to organise a public meeting.
Okay. Councillor Roach?
My understanding is that they are holding public consultation meetings across the whole of their...
That's different, David.
Is that different?
That's the Marks.
Yeah, so just for Councillor Smith really, I think because of the changes that are going on in continuing care and holistic medicine at the moment, before really we invite the public to ask questions, it's probably a good idea that we all understand comprehensively where that all fits together, because we are the public face of, we go out and meet our public and they're going to be asking us questions. So if we understand it better, and we've only got an hour with them, and I can tell you that it is an enormously big subject, that it will give them the opportunity to fully inform you where it fits together, and it really isn't easy. And that way at least then you can ask your questions, which will allow you to inform your public, and then perhaps at a later stage, if you felt that was appropriate, that we could have a meeting for the public. But they're just at the moment of change. They're going from clinical commissioning to integrated care. They are fundamentally in the process of changing, and next March they will change. So there's such a lot going on at the moment, but I think if you ask the public to come, it would just be a kind of you wouldn't learn as much if you give them the opportunity to tell you what's happening, how the plans are fitting together and what the plans for Haverhill are. That will put you in a much stronger position to help your residents, and then perhaps then, once they've done it in March, it would be a good idea then for them the public to come along then, once they have put that new integrated plan together, and raise their concerns, because otherwise I think it would just be a very challenging meeting, frankly. That's my view.
Okay, Councillor Smith?
So if there is such a lot to cover, is an hour going to be enough?
Probably not, David, but I think it'll give, to be honest, at the moment, Kate Wharton's not turning up to a lot of meetings because I think she's overwhelmed. So I think at the moment, the challenges are just enormous. They've got 60 COVID patients in West Suffolk Hospital at the moment. Everything's a bit of a nightmare. So I think taking what's on offer is better than not taking anything at all, and getting some information and allowing us, and I think Colin's idea of putting strategic questions to them beforehand so that they can really shape those answers for us and give us some comprehensive answers rather than it being, a kind of repetitive answering little bits at a time. That's just my view, but obviously it's up to you guys what you want to do, but that was my intention when I suggested that they came along. And if you're not happy with that, I'm sorry, but I think that would be a good plan.
Okay then, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the S106 figures, which I did send out yesterday. I apologise, it was a bit late on our post. I think John sent some information as well, to sort of back that up. So this information that we've got about how that money is going to go towards, potentially towards healthcare, I think perhaps could form some of our questioning that we make to Kate when she comes. I think that's the way I was thinking, because the questions I've got from the members of the public that have been sent to me is very much about how, with the GP crisis and everything else, we're going to manage the situation going forward with the developments that we've got. And I know there was some concern that we don't really want to authorise any further, we don't really authorise it, but comment on any further developments unless we've got those questions answered. Okay. So hopefully you will have a chance to have a look at those and perhaps form your.
So what's on those lists that you and I sent out are now sacrosanct, unless all the entities are willing to enter into a legal codicil, if you like. Nothing changes.
Yeah, I think I was thinking more along the lines of what the health service will do with those funds, and that's the sort of answers I think that we're looking for. Not that that's going to change the S106 money, but what are they going to do with it?
You need to keep an eye on them.
Yeah. Councillor Hanlon?
Yeah, I think that what you just said is very important, because we have lost, because they haven't, the health haven't spent it, or I think it was the health, it all went back. So we must sort of keep the pressure on to keep them asking them what they're going to do with the money, because otherwise they'll lose it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next one was the community governance review.
I contacted Alex Wilson at West Suffolk requesting a review, and he advised that Ben Smith, the elections manager, is in charge of that. And I had a telephone conversation with Ben, and they do intend carrying out a review. So they've written to the Boundary Commission asking if it's okay to do it now, so that the elections in 2023 would be to potentially new boundaries, and then, because obviously the county changes don't apply until 2025 election, but they're not anticipating any issue there, and they've got more than just Haverhill to do anyway. It would be a limited review. It would only be really addressing the creation of really the two central wards and sorting those two out. They wouldn't be looking everywhere else.
So they wouldn't consider the cottages that are in with Great Little Ratting, I think what it was, but being surrounded by Haverhill.
No, they're not going to look at that, simply because those are coterminous now with the other boundaries, and it was the gap that was created where there is around West Suffolk there are a few anomalies, including that one, that would need to be resolved, and it also would not change the number of councillors. So if 2 wards were merged, then it would, instead of having a county each, you'd have 2 councillors. So in theory, the incumbents could all return.
Okay, thank you. The next item, don't notice full display, please.
That was to sort out displays, putting ward details on, and that is in hand, but hasn't been completed.
Councillor Mason?
Yes, Chair. I just wondered whether, as part of that project, we might be able to do a review. To the best of my knowledge, and I've asked Councillor Elaine McManus, is there a What's On in Haverhill display board in the North Ward? I can't think of one, and I don't think there is. Ideally, we would have them located in a number of different places around the town. Could we have a review of exactly where these locations are?
We know where they all are. You've got Queensway, where there's one, but in terms, that's the closest to North, but the location that we had for that one was the wall of the shops, and the owner then changed their mind when the contractors came to put it up. So currently the parish handyman is sorting out legs for it, because unfortunately, I don't really understand why, but the manufacturer who made freestanding ones, such as outside the Leyston, also made the wall-mounted one. I assumed that the difference is one's got legs and one hasn't, but apparently the wall-mounted ones are different, so we're having to fabricate legs especially, and so then we'll need to find a freestanding place where it can go.
Okay, that's fine. Is it possible that Elaine and myself might be consulted as regards that location?
Even better, you could suggest the best location for it, to be perfectly honest.
And the second part of the question is, over the last couple of years, whenever I've looked in them, they're not really being updated. And I can't see any reason why quarterly we can't instruct staff to update those. I mean, yes, I know there's COVID, but even before COVID, they weren't really being updated. And we did talk about them being a good source of information that we can give out to residents, but they need to be updated on a quarterly basis. Can we have that put in, that will then be enacted going forward?
Yeah, I mean, we did keep the minutes and the agendas went in on our bit, but we also provided sections of them for the public to put their own notices in, and that never really cottoned on. So there's in the triple section ones, there's a section for the council which has notices of meetings. Middle section is for community organisations, and then the other one is just for general public notices, but it's not really cottoned on, so I think you're probably right, we need to think better how they're used, so they look used.
Okay, thank you. Okay then, so we move on to item 5. Reports from district county councillors on issues pertinent to Haverhill and the public forum. So first of all, 5A, we're going to go to the police, and we have Inspector Peter Ferry from the Suffolk Constabulary.
I'm delighted to be here. It's lovely to be back for one last time. I've got a short report about crime in the Haverhill area shortly, but the main reason I'm coming here tonight is because it's my last...
John just said, could you stand, perhaps? Would you be able to?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Thank you.
The main reason for coming tonight is because it's my last meeting as a police officer. I retire very, very shortly. I've got 14 more working days left, and then that's me after 30 years. Half of that time I've spent in Haverhill, and I just want to say to the council and to the individual councillors that are here and that I worked closely with when I was here as the local policing commander, how very, very grateful I am for the support that you gave me when I was here, and in many cases the help that you gave me when I was here as well. It certainly hasn't been forgotten. I haven't been here as the local policing commander for 5 and a bit years, but I certainly remember the help that many of you gave me. I'm very, very grateful. I am extremely proud to have spent half of my time as a police officer here in Haverhill. It is a wonderful town. Perhaps doesn't get people don't quite understand what Haverhill is all about until you come here. Many police officers are afraid of coming to Haverhill until they arrive, and then they realise what a great place it is to work. It's a fabulous place to be a police officer. A really, really cracking place to be. Just to go through some of the crime statistics, and these are provided by our very own John Burns at the back. There's some that have gone down substantially over the past 4 years. And when I go through those now, you'll understand why. As a police officer, and I am a very old-fashioned sort of police officer, I always think, and always have done, that we live and die on our burglary figures. That's the crime that people are, I believe, most worried about. And I judge the local police on what our burglary figures are like. To quote John's statistics, in 2018 we had a monthly average of 13 burglaries in Haverhill. 2019 that went down to 10. 2020 that went down to an average of 9 a month. And this year so far in 2021 we're down to an average of 6 burglaries a month. I could stand here and say the police are doing an absolutely fabulous job, but looking at it, there's a reason that burglaries have gone down, and that is because an awful lot of people are working from home. So there's less empty properties for burglars to target. But that's still fabulous for a town. To only have 6 burglaries a month is, I think, really, really good, considering back in 2018 we were having 13 a month on average. Another crime that's gone down substantially, and again there's a reason for this, is shoplifting. In 2018 we had an average of 18 shopliftings a month. 2019 that was down to 15. 2020 that was down to 9. And again this year we're down to an average of 6 shopliftings a month. And the reason for that, most people now, or a lot of people now, are buying on the internet. They're shopping on the internet. So there's less people in the shops. So it's easier for shop workers and security officers in the shops to keep an eye on people. Also, a lot of shops have now introduced proper security. Some of the really easy targets in Haverhill have now got, whenever I walk in them, they've got proper security. And some of them as well are putting barriers, proper physical barriers to stop people just running out the door. So all of that put together means that shoplifting is way down. So burglary and shoplifting way down. Some crime categories that have stayed relatively stable over the past 4 years are drugs. Hasn't really been a big increase in that per month. We're looking at an average of 9 drugs crimes per month in the town. And again, something that people do worry about, possession of weapons. This has remained stable throughout the entire sort of 4-year period. In 2018 we had an average of 2 possession of weapons offences. 2019 it was 3. 2020 it was 2 a month again, and again this year, 2021, it's running at 2 a month. So we're arresting 2 people a month in possession of weapons in the town. Looking at the crimes now, the one that has really gone up, and there's a reason for this as well, as in all things, is vehicle crime. 2018 was an average of 9 vehicle crimes a month in Haverhill. 2019 it had gone up to 10. 2020 it had gone up to 17. And so far this year, 2021, it's an average of 23 crimes a month. So that has gone up. And again, when I look at things, there's an obvious reason for that. Vehicle crime is a relatively simple, low-tech type of crime. You can choose which car you break into, and if you walk around the town, you haven't got to choose the first car you see. You can choose a really good location where nobody can overlook you, smash a window, steal a handbag. So it's an opportunistic crime that's really, really simple to do. Within that crime category though, there are some more sophisticated crimes. Have I turned the lights out? There are some more sophisticated crimes. We had in Haverhill, I think it was 2 months ago, a spate of keyless car thefts where, I don't know if you know what these are, if you've got a particular device, you can steal a car just by, I'm no great technical expert, robbing the keyless details from inside the house by holding this device up to the house, and then you can start the car and off you go. And we had a small spate of those that were believed linked to some Essex criminals. Thankfully they haven't returned, but they did steal, I think it was 2 vehicles, and tried to steal a third on one night in the town. But much of the car crime in town is relatively unsophisticated. It's your typical smash your window, steal a handbag or steal a mobile phone that we would have seen at any point over my sort of 30-year career. In general though, when I look at the crime figures, we haven't got a major spike in anything else apart from car crime. And we have seen some fairly major drops because of COVID and because of working from home. So the general picture of crime in Haverhill at the moment is relatively stable and relatively low. So if I was the local police commissioner, which I'm not anymore, but if I was, I'd be happy with the figures that I've got in front of me. Happy to take questions from anyone.
Councillor Roach?
Okay, it's nice to see you back.
Thank you, lovely to be
Even
back.
if it's only for a short time.
Yes.
Before you go, could you put in a request, please? Can we have some road policing in town again?
Yes,
we've
sir.
seen loads and loads of antisocial driving around various parts of town. Huge, noisy exhaust, terrorising about. So, if we could perhaps have a request to come out here. I know it's difficult for them because they're a stretched resource, but it would be nice to see them in this side of the county.
So we've got some local officers that are trained to give out many of the tickets that the road police will give out as well. But I will ask for road policing to come down.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Councillor Hanlon?
Yeah, walking here to the Arts Centre, I'm afraid that I'm just walking towards these two men with hoods on. The lady was facing me. This was outside Iceland, and as I walked past quite close, he had white substance on his hand, and she was moaning about it wasn't enough. So it still goes on openly, right all the lights in front of Iceland. So it's a shame that we don't have policemen sort of walking up and down the town of an evening, really, because they're just doing it openly.
Okay. I will, when I leave here, I will walk back along the high street, see if they're still there. We've got SMT officers on duty this evening. I'll get them to come out and see if we can find who they were.
Yeah, they've both had these white tops with these. I didn't see their faces, so I couldn't, because they had their backs to me.
It's unusual though for them to do it even in the high street because of the CCTV. It's an easy win for us really if they're that dark. Usually we pick that up with the CCTV operators.
Yeah, right in front. Yeah, just, and she was moaning that there wasn't enough there. So I went right past them.
Councillor Marks and then Councillor...
Oh yeah, very quickly, I don't know if you can do anything about this, but when I drive back to Bury or back from Ipswich, I now count the number of cars with defective headlights, and it's a lot. Of course now we're building for winter, a lot of people won't check their headlights, and especially when the offside one is not working, that's really dangerous. I don't know how people don't know that they haven't got it, but it's quite a big problem really. And I've now got this sort of thing, I start counting them as I go along, seeing the defective headlights I can count between there and home, and it's quite a lot.
That's an easy win for the SMT.
Well,
Very easy win.
I
They
I
pull them
do
into a
also-
lay by as they come past.
I do also think that when you go to have your light changed at Halfords, which is where I would go just to have a headlight bulb change, I don't think they actually check whether the angle's right, and I don't know whether they want to check to see whether they actually have something on the wall that they check, because I know that mine have not been set properly from there before, so that might be just asking, because I know quite a lot of people go to places like that as well. But thank you for that. That'd be very helpful.
Pleasure.
Councillor Smith?
Interesting question, the figures on shoplifting. I suppose cynics might say, well, that's because we've got less shops. But the thing I really want to bring up is security in stores. I mean, speaking to security in one of our major supermarkets in town, they've said that when they've caught shoplifters, they don't bother calling the police because all they come along is just, they come along about 2 hours later, give them a slap on the wrist and say, just let them go. So, do you think these figures are perhaps manipulated a bit by this, or
If they don't call us, we're not going to know about it.
Yeah,
I'd encourage them to tell us.
yeah, but if their perception is, well, there's no point, it's not going to show up as a figure, is it?
No, certainly not. I think you could have said that at any point over the last 4 years. So I don't know. It's a tricky one, but I would always encourage any shoplifter to call us. If we turn up and then it's dealt with by another sort of means, another disposal, then that'd be one thing. But if they're not calling us, we're not going to know.
Councillor Mason?
Yes, it's just in relation to the increase in car crime. I'm just thinking of people in the community who may be watching this evening, and I find it a little concerning that you quite rightly say that it's an easy, opportune crime. So, how are you addressing it as a team? Is there any clean-up? Are we encouraging people to report things that are happening in their area? Is it likely to go even further? What reassurance can you give to residents that is something that can be actioned, whether it's through public information and education or...
So it's a great question. We're doing two main things at the moment. We've got something called Operation Night Out, which we've got a minimum staffing around the west of Suffolk. Each town has a minimum amount of officers that it needs to work properly. It's always nice if you have more than that minimum, but what we're doing at the moment under Operation Night Owl is once every town has got its minimum, anyone extra is being gathered together, and they all at the moment come down to Haverhill, and they're patrolling various estates in Haverhill to try and catch the car crime merchants, and that can be anywhere from an extra 2, 3, 4, 5 extra officers that at the moment are dedicated to come down to Haverhill. In terms of crime prevention, I don't know if any of you were about, it was last Saturday, not this Saturday just gone, but the Saturday before, but the SNT were out in the High Street giving out a really good crime prevention message, and I think they had some cadets there as well, that were just trying to encourage people not to leave valuables in cars on open display. We can't do too much at the moment about the keyless, the really sophisticated end of the car thefts, unless we actually catch them in the act. But prevention, we can stop an awful lot of the more simple car crimes. It doesn't take much just to put a handbag back in the house, or take that mobile phone off your seat and take that back in the house. So that's the sort of work that we're doing to try and stop some of the simpler crimes that are being committed.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Of course.
On that particular thing, sorry. Yeah, you can get these cases that stop that happening, because my daughter's got one. And also a lady whose car was unfortunately, because it was a Mercedes, big Mercedes opposite me, she's put a cover over the top of her car so that they can't see it's Mercedes, because I may be wrong with this, but it seems like they go for Mercedes on them sort of crime.
BMWs, Audi, it's all the Germans.
Yeah, the very expensive big cars. So I've just, and I think that's another, maybe she was told that by a police officer, to put a cover over it. So
I know there was a campaign in terms of the storing your keys in a place where it can't be, the governance can't be tapped out of it. Yeah.
Councillor Farman, you wanted to...
I think we're underestimating this car theft thing in town, because a lot of residents have really had enough now. Every day it's on social media. I work in the town, people approach me. I've even heard talk of vigilante groups patrolling the streets at night, taking matters in their own hands. It's got that bad. I mean, I think I see the police do it. I know it's hard what's going on, but any extent they came up a little bit, I think, personally. I really do.
I haven't heard, that's the first I've heard of vigilante groups.
So I've heard a couple of rumours. I'm in town a lot, I hear things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's every day it's taking social media. I mean, it's all right, as I said to one of the residents, about hiding their phone away, their purse away. Sometimes people forget that they're human, It's not their fault, is it, if you've got it broken into?
They're breaking in anyway, regardless of
Doesn't matter whether you're legal, anyway.
Councillor
Very
Brown?
worrying. It's very
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, they're called Faraday cases, I think.
yeah.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Good to see you back in town.
Nice to be back.
I'd agree with a lot of what colleagues have said around car crime and even its problem. But thanks for getting some more resources back to the town. It is appreciated. I know it's a difficult one. But the other thing is railway walk. Every time I have an opportunity, I try and bring it up. there'll be more patrols on Railway Walk, because there's a lot of anecdotal stories about drug dealing going on down there, sort of up at the water's edge, and obviously there's young children coming from New Campbell School that come down that pathway. I know dog walkers are seen quite often with drug dealing going on, but to be fair, I regularly use the Railway Walk to take the dog for a walk, and you do see people there that you know are drug dealing.
Yeah, that's a location to notice, but I will make sure that the SNT get themselves out.
Super highway of Haverhill.
Brilliant, yeah, I'll let them know.
Okay, Councillor Burns and then Councillor Baker.
Peter, I'm not going to go on about crime or anything like that. I just want to thank you for all the work you've done over the last few years, especially the stuff that you and I have worked on. The weekly news is that you used to enjoy, and I appreciate the problems with them in the end, but I thought they went down very well, and they keep appearing on YouTube as a reminder every so often. I think they were good, and I think that was a great communication to the public. You know, regularly we'd have 1,000, 2,000 people a week watching them. It doesn't sound much, but you know, when you see council meetings only watched by 2 or 3 people, then you realise how well they went down. And I think that's where I think the CEOs and you know, it's things I mentioned to the police and crime thing and the chief constable, that you know, we need to be 21st century, not still trying to use bits of paper to do things.
I'll give you a story about those videos. I was walking down the high street. There was one we did about young people and drugs. I was walking down the high street, came across a group of young lads walking the other way. I thought, oh, here we go. But they also, a big group of lads, they said, there's Inspector Ferry, we've seen him on YouTube. Yeah. I thought, flipping heck. New technology, it does work.
Yeah. So thank you for all your service, enjoy your retirement.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully we'll see you at the Panto this year.
You will, I've got my tickets already, every year. You've got our usual seats.
Thank you, Peter.
Pleasure.
Councillor Davison.
Thank you. Coming back to the car crime, if I may, over the last year we've had a real big increase in the theft of catalytic converters. Now a lot of them haven't been reported to police because basically the police have been effective. Any comment on that, please?
I would say, much as I've said about the shoplifting, if you don't report it to us, we're not going to know. And we're not going to put those extra resources into a particular area. If you've got 3 cat thefts in a particular street and we don't know about it because no one's reported it to us, we're not going to patrol that street. So I would encourage anyone who is a victim of crime to tell the police.
Okay, definitely.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Just one quick one. And that's the thing that John brought up about the YouTube stuff. I mean, you're an exemplar about, you know, community engagement. Our SNT meetings that you led on, YouTube stuff, absolutely brilliant. You know, the residents of Haverhill always felt that they had somewhere that they could come and voice their concerns and opinions, and it was fantastic to get that feedback. And I think it worked. It was a 2-way street. But unfortunately, when you left, that all fell off a cliff, and we've had, you know, to be fair, I think we've had once a year or something like that. We may get someone pop along. Whereas before we used to have, you know, yourself or, you know, one of the constables attend a meeting, every single town council meeting. We used to have our SNT meetings, which were great. I mean, there's 50 odd people used to attend, it was live. And what a loss, you know, to the force and to town. That was, you know, and you know, that's the big worry for us. Is a lot of stuff just isn't getting reported, you know, because you know yourself the problems around the 101 service, etc., etc. Yeah, so what a shame, but you know, you knew how to do it. It was great.
Thank you. It was good fun, and yeah. I always like to come. It's personally, every inspector's different.
Yeah.
I always used to like to come to council meetings and to the SNT meetings, even though some of them turned into right old pun fights. But it was good to feel the sort of the voices of the town, and it's good to give an opportunity to people in the town who don't usually see me to tell me what's going on. I've heard fairly loud and clear that car crime is a priority for the councillors and for the people of the town. So I will feed that back to our area commander. I know that your town clerk did write to the chief constable very recently about car crime in the town. So I will feed that back to Matt Gilbert, who's the current LPC commander, and also the people that are above him as well. So we are getting extra resources, but I'll see if we can tweak that just a little bit more and get a little bit more into the town as well.
Okay, no more questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It has been genuinely a pleasure to work in Haverhill and to work with many of the councillors that I still see here. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Yep, go back.
Yes, of course.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Yes, go and get those pillows.
Yes. I will walk on the high street tax if I can see those people there.
We're a bit conspicuous.
Yes. Only a bit. Lovely. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Right. Okay, so going on to next item 5B, reports from county councillors. I did see that Councillor Mason has sent the report round, hopefully everyone got that. Are there any other comments? Councillor Roach.
Just a verbal report. There's still loads going on with highways issues. We still have problems with the lorry parking on the lay-by on the bypass. That's a problem. I think the way we're going to resolve that is perhaps to look at getting a stopping up order. So that's something perhaps we need to think about for that, and whether or not the town council can support that as a view. I know it's a long while now, but we had the barriers up Little Tony where you was county councillor, and that worked, but the signage thing just hasn't worked, and the time plates keep getting stolen, so it makes enforcement difficult. So I think we perhaps have to look at something like that. Other than that, you will have seen from county that the lorry route surveys come out to towns and parishes. I know that there's a meeting in Clare tonight for the various parishes that are along the A road that goes from through Clare into Sudbury. So there's loads going on that regard. Other than that, there's a lot of time spent on dealing with personal cases.
That's the marks.
I'd like to reinforce what Councillor Roach has just said. We've had residents who've been disturbed for 2 years now, where the lorries park, they leave their refrigeration vehicles running all night, and then they go and park themselves quietly up on the industrial estate and go to sleep. These poor people can't sleep. They've sent us no end of pictures. We've been up to Kalina. Kalina has told some of the lorries not to park there. They've had a load more sent pictures from last night. I think it would be really nice if this town council was minded to, because apparently David very kindly for me actually asked county council to deal with it, and they dropped it. He had it put on their plan of action. When he went to look at it again, they had just dropped it and said the matter was closed, which is really not acceptable. And I don't think we get our fair share of service from Suffolk County Council, and I'm afraid that that's probably not a popular view, but I think it's a fact. It would be really nice if this council could actually collectively say we would like that lay-by closed and let our residents have some peace. It's gone on for 2 years now.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, what the big issue is that we just have not got facilities for truckers in Haverhill. We have a lot of trucks come to the town.
I agree with that.
We should totally have somewhere, as I said in the email, which I shared with everyone. It's a hard old job. It's one of the most regulated jobs there is in the country, other than airline pilot, I think. It's very stressful. No one wants you there. There's no loos around, no clean showers or anything like that. It's an awful job. We all buy and receive stuff that comes via trucks and one thing or another. We should really, hopefully as a county council and town council, push to try and get some facilities, some proper facilities on the industrial estate, away from houses. And the issue with the lay-by isn't the trucks parking there so much, it's the chiller units that make the noise. Especially in the summer when people have got their windows open, it really does, they do make a noise. I just feel sorry in one way for the truck drivers. They don't want to park there, they want somewhere comfortable where they can have a shower, etc., etc. I think you've got to somehow keep them in mind as well, and we need to provide facilities via the county council.
Councillor Burns.
Yeah, I don't know about stopping up. I mean, I spent a long time getting that traffic regulation order installed on that lay-by.
Keep nicking the sign.
Okay, well, the signs are not there being put up properly by highways. We also don't have West Suffolk actually enforcing it either, because there are no signs. The signs were there for quite a while before they got nicked. And I think that's what highways need to do. But equally, I support what Councillor Brown says, and I think Suffolk County Council need to be talking to both Essex and Cambridgeshire, because there are plenty of places where a truck stop could be done, like at Four Wentways or somewhere like that, which the County Council and the Greater Cambridge Partnership were discussing when they were talking about the new Park and Ride on the other side of the A11. Talking about making this side of it into a truck stop, which I think would be perfect. It's on the A11, so you've got the people coming down the A11, maybe coming off the M11 as well, who need to stop there. And the people who need to come here, they're only 20 minutes, half an hour from Haverhill. They can be called in by the likes of Kalina and all these other companies to meet their just-in-time requirements. It doesn't help the people like Kalina. Yes, they've got provision, but they only provide it for their own company drivers and their own company trucks. And I think these companies need to step up to the mark as well and say to them, come on guys, you're here. Yes, you might be parked down the road, but wander in, have a shower, have something to eat, and then go back to your truck. And obviously they sleep in the trucks and everything, and that's and get rid of all this feces and everything else we have running by the side of the road up there, up on Phoenix Road and all those sort of places, which we all know, as I said, on that planning permission for the business park, which has been nothing to be done about it. The Essex County Council were up in arms on environmental health. Still nothing's been done, but we need to provide somebody needs to provide it. It doesn't have to be in Haverhill, but it needs to be somewhere relatively close. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hanlon.
Yeah, I entirely agree with what Councillor Brown was saying. For the poor truckers, and they really, they really are poor. And I wonder having trouble employing something like 100,000 short, are they? Something like that. Yeah, the lorry route survey. I sent councillors where we could put a place for the lorry park in Suffolk, which is just on by the A1307, just inside the Suffolk border. It is.
Not big enough, perhaps. Nowhere near big enough.
Well, it's the same size. In fact, it's small. It's bigger than the lorry park in Bury St Edmunds. So you've got more space there than Bury St Edmunds one. So there is enough. Anyway, what I've done is just maps and that I showed the rest of the councillors. I've sent it to this lorry route survey. I know it says lorry route. I think it involves that very much. So, I've sent them plans and that, and I still think that is an ideal place for them, what I showed all the rest of the councillors. So, we need to, and I agree with what Councillor Byrne said, we need to push as much as possible Suffolk County Council as well on this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Furman, then.
See how bad it's got. I'll drive to Fulham Ways and I'll go to London, and the actual roundabout there'd be about. And parking down the road will be 60 lorries maybe all parked up because there's nowhere to go. And they've got a wee and whatever. And it's terrible. You treat it like animal really. You don't treat it like a set car sits. I mean,
It's such a challenge.
we should be thinking about these drivers. Really should be.
Yeah. Councillor Mason.
Okay, to clarify, the lorry route study that's going on is purely looking at the journeys that lorries do and how they move around the county. I've emailed Richard Smith, portfolio holder for transport. I think there's a national dialogue about what it's like to be a lorry driver and how undervalued possibly they feel. And I think there is scope for a broader discussion about facilities, but this will not be part of the lorry route review that's going on. It's very much about the routes that lorries take. But I have asked that question about whether in the future we can find council time to discuss the needs of drivers. I haven't had he was going to speak to the officers and he was going to get back to me. But just to clarify, this is very much about the journeys, not the facilities for lorry drivers.
Any other points, comments? Going back to what you said, Councillor Marks, did you want town council to make some?
I absolutely take on board the lorry drivers' dilemma, and I've spoken to Kalina more times than probably, everybody here has also spoken to them. I know we've had these discussions and they're very unsympathetic to that element, which is not great from an employer perspective. But we are actually here also for our residents. And if, David and I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many emails we've had about that particular lay-by and the fact those people are so distressed. And I think we do have a duty of care to them too. So until we resolve that, until County Council resolve the signage, and there is proper enforcement in that lay-by, and to be honest, they shouldn't be sleeping there overnight anyway because it's disallowed. I think still closing off that lay-by for the time being would resolve the problem temporarily until there is a proper plan put in place, because there isn't a proper plan right now.
So are you proposing that
I'm
we...
still proposing it,
on the
yeah.
agenda.
Yeah, so if we put that on the agenda for the next meeting, that we discuss proposing that to the County Council? Thank you.
Sorry, can you explain that?
Okay, so to propose, you asking them to
close
close...
off the lay, that we put a motion forward to close off the lay line until the situation is resolved regarding the traffic regulation order, and that we've got some regulation being, these guys coming from West Suffolk to...
So on the agenda it would be discussing...
Can you speak up?
So on the agenda it would be discussing that point to decide as a council whether we want to...
Is there any merit in asking somebody from Kalina just to come along and talk to us here? They are the biggest sort of company that uses lorries here. Is there any merit? Perhaps Aaron Law would be prepared to come along and talk to us? He's been very supportive and helpful.
My only thought on that is that Kalina allow their own lorries onto their site, and the lorries that are on the lay-by are not under Kalina's control other than the time they arrive, and of course may not be going to Kalina at all.
No,
So in the past, Kalina have been somewhat tetchy when they've been linked so solidly to being the problem.
Okay, so we've got that on the next agenda to discuss that issue that you raised. Thank you, Councillor Marks. Okay then, so any other questions from county councillors? No? About the reports that they've made? No? Okay, thank you. So next we're going to 5C about district councillors. Do you have any reports from the district councillors? Councillor Roach?
I'll go again, wearing my local plan hat. For members of the local plan working group, we're going to have a session coming up on the 4th where we're going to start looking at site allocations for the next plan. So John and David are on that as well. So that's where we're at with that. So we'll start actually physically looking at where we think the growth is going to go.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? No? Okay then, so any other district councillors got any comments? Councillor Marks?
Yeah, in my role on the health scrutiny, just about the health centre on Camps Road, and just to say that they are working really hard on the co-location of the services that are coming out of there. Some of them will go into the staff view. Some of the administration will go another place, and they will let us know as soon as they can. Obviously, this wasn't expected. They didn't know that building had the rack plank issue. So we're getting some major concerns from residents, obviously, about their services. And, obviously, we will be updated when they know where things are going to go. But I think we do need to keep a very close eye on it, because this is an opportunity for us. This is an opportunity to say, if we want the combined hub here in Haverhill, we've now got a building that's not fit for purpose. We've always said it wasn't fit for purpose anyway. So this does actually give us an opportunity. So I think we should we should keep that in mind really. And when they start to do the consultations from West Suffolk Hospital, which they're going to start running now, looking at their planning application for the future, do be mindful of where they're going to put and co-locate services, because the footprint for the patients from West Suffolk Hospital is quite massive. And money follows a service, so there is only so much money for each service, and we have to be very careful where they're going to put those services, that everybody in the location, we can't be entirely selfish about it, but that everybody under that footprint can actually access them, given the rurality and the complexity of our very poor transport infrastructure that we have. So, I think everybody needs to go to those consultations and keep a really close eye on what is happening and make sure our points are put forward.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Margaret just reminded me, what's the current situation with the ultrasound machine? I've been meaning to ask you.
I have raised this week actually. I raised it with Ian Gallen because the consultant at West Suffolk Hospital who was working with Betty McClatchy has now retired. And that machine, because I don't know if you know, but the Cancer Road building, what was the Christmas Maltings building, is now being taken over by the family practice in its entirety. That machine has gone to West Suffolk Hospital, and I'm trying to find out why and how, what is happening to it here, because that was bought for here, by money raised from here. But it's always, in my view, been seriously underutilised, because we have 400 live births here a year, and it could be very well used for maternity services. And when I challenged that, I was told if a lady had a pregnancy that was in any way compromised, there wouldn't be anybody in the ultrasound room who could have that conversation with her. And I said, well, you don't need to have that conversation. All that needs to be said is, the consultant will be in touch with you. There were excuses not to use it for that particular reason. So we do need to push back, and I think that could be one of the questions that we put to Kate Vaughan, because Federal Commissioning has some responsibility for that. So that could go down as a first question: one, when are we going to get it back? And two, what services will it be used for? Because it's not been very well used since it got bought.
Yeah, I was there at the opening, so obviously as yourself, and a lot of promises were made, and a lot of people in Haverhill contributed money to it. Absolutely. Shocking.
It was used, but it was very underutilised. And the other problem is, Tony, of course, is it took up a room which was underutilised, and now we're tight for facilities. So, the Betty McClatchy room, I think it got called, didn't it? We could ask specifically what that room's going to be used for, because it was to house our ultrasound that was funded by local people for local people. So perhaps, Liz, would you mind making that one of the questions for that panel that they could have beforehand? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I just note really that the next week's full council meeting has been cancelled, because apparently there's not enough substantive business. We haven't got enough business with what's happening in the world at the moment. I don't think we're trying hard enough, so it's very disappointing, but we are where we are.
Thank you. Councillor Burns.
You obviously saw my report, so I won't repeat anything in that. Councillor Smith just mentioned why I wrote a quite strong email yesterday to West Suffolk, saying I think it was disgusting they just cancelled something. If you can't, I'm going to discuss formally, let's have an informal meeting and we can raise things. So they're going to discuss it internally again. But they're now saying that they think they might bring the number of meetings down to only 5 a year, which is pretty good. In terms of the ultrasound, one thing, I'm not going to labour this point, but I wrote 4 times to the Unity Health Trust. Not once did they bother responding. I spoke to family practice when I was in there, spoke to Dr. Watfay. He said somebody had come with a lorry and taken it away, surprisingly, and I said, well, I heard it was underutilised, and he said, yes, we were denied even the opportunity to use it as the family practice, because it was only what is now the Unity Health Trust who said with ours.
Well, it wasn't, it was actually under West Suffolk Hospital's.
Yes, I know, because they were denied the access to it.
That was an agreement.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, they denied the access because they went in there to use it and found it had gone missing. Because they have perfectly qualified people in the family practice who can use it. So anyway, so that's, I was pretty disgusted with that. If it's gone to West Suffolk, that's even worse. Thank you.
Well, I don't think it's even being used.
Councillor Henry.
Yeah, the government's just recently said they're going to allocate £5 billion, which is to health services, and this is for, not for actually helping to get more staff, but to utilise, say for instance, that ultrasound and things like that to make more services. So I'm just wondering if West Suffolk CCG is being allocated some of that £5 billion, and obviously that could go towards, having another building, services altogether in one particular place. And I'm just wondering if sort of work could get back to West Suffolk, because they're the ones that must be getting the money, West Suffolk CCG, part of this £5 billion.
Councillor Marks?
Yeah, just be very mindful that they talk about locality in the one hand, and they have got the 6 localities for West Suffolk. But next year, they're going to join forces, the 3 clinical commissioning services, and will become integrated care. Now, the problem there is that they'll also be combining the financial pots. And what you need to think about there is you've got North East Essex will then be part of that pot. And if you look at the demographics and you look at deprivation, that is an area of very high deprivation. And we all know that the money will go where it's needed. And one of the questions we could ask, and I've already asked Richard Watson but haven't had a reply, can we be certain that the money that we've had in West Suffolk Clinical Commissioning will remain in West Suffolk? It's quite a serious worry for me, and I also think that they're going to inherit, in 2023, they will be inheriting dentistry, and that will come with inadequate funding. So what budgets are they going to cut further to finance that service and prop it up? Because at the moment, we don't even have children are suffering terribly from lack of dental treatment. We need dentists back in schools. So in order to do that, they need to start campaigning to get NHS England to fund that properly before it gets transferred. But moreover, when the pots are combined, we need to absolutely make sure we keep hold of our part of the pot. And how are they going to assure us that that's going to happen?
Yeah, so that's one of the questions we can also raise on that evening. So it is important that we get these questions together. So obviously I could put some questions that we've talked about tonight, but if individual councillors can email Colin as per the email that he sent out and put those questions forward. Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay then, so we go on to 5D. Members of the public are welcome to make statements. We have no members of the public present today. So we'll go straight on to 8 consultations. So 8A, sorry, 8, should be 6, shouldn't it? 5 and 6.
Oh, what happened there?
Okay, well 6 or 8 or whatever it is on there. Consultations then. So A, the Suffolk Police and Crime Commissioners Police and Crime Plan. So who's going to speak? Anybody?
Brief council as to what it is.
Thank you.
So basically it's really reading the police crime plan and asking whether or not you are supportive or have any comments on the 4 objectives. An efficient and effective police force, I think that's a good idea. Provide services which effectively support victims of crime and invest in initiatives which reduce crime. Engage with communities to understand their views about policing and work in partnership to improve criminal justice outcomes. Yeah, so those are the 4. They're obviously a bit apple pie, no one's going to disagree with those, but it's whether or not there are any that are missing, or is anything that you would want to say in particular about those to highlight any aspect of those that ought to be taken into account.
Councillor Burns.
Yeah, I'll start only because I'm on the police and crime panel who will be examining the police and crime plan and eventually approving it in one form or another. We've already had a draft of it several weeks ago, which a lot of us made comments on, and a lot of this is being changed based on previous meetings, where previously a lot of it was all around, if you like, things that have no benefit to us as a town and other towns. I'm not talking about Haverhill particularly. Local policing is one thing. Not necessarily the visibility of policing, but the availability of policing. We all want to get more things. So there's been a lot of quite subtle changes to the plan. I'm not saying it's perfect even now, but I think it's worthwhile if anyone wants to comment individually as well as through the town council, please do so, even if it's to find some errors in the thing. We have got more police officers coming, not this financial year unfortunately, other than one officer, but next year there is a desire and a thing, if the precept goes up particularly, but also part of the Home Office uplift programme, is that we will have a lot more local police officers, because we keep giving lots of police officers to the cybercrime unit and ERCOS, which is the Eastern Region criminal thing, and all these other individual things, but we need more local officers, not just here, but it's all the other councillors and independent members who are on the panel all say the same thing: we need more local officers. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just as I was saying earlier, the most paramount thing to me is community engagement. That's the feedback from the public. People know that they can come along to us, other agencies, and their voices heard. That's, as I said earlier, that's the big gaping hole that's missing, I think.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? So the consultation be comments through you, Colin?
Yes, if you wanted to give a deadline for councillors to submit any comments, a lot of you can make comments direct, as we've heard. If anyone thinks there's something particularly the town council should be commenting on, over and above what's just been said, then perhaps in the next week, say for the end of next week.
Yeah, so if you send in your comments to Colin, if you think of any that you want to put forward. Okay. So the next one, B, 8B or 6B, is West Suffolk Market Survey. So
I suspect Councillor Burns can do the better rendition.
Yep.
I'm chairman of the West Suffolk Markets working group. There are 5 surveys, one of which is for parish councils, businesses, traders, members of the public, and West Suffolk members who've all had an email asking for their own comments, whether it be about Haverhill or any other market. And I know Councillor Furman's already completed his traders one. The public one, unfortunately, is not going to be made public, if you know what I mean. It's not publicised. It's going to be one-to-one on the market and on off-market days, in towns that have got markets. Parish councils outside West Suffolk within a 5-mile radius are also being questioned as well. I know some parish councils have said, we haven't got time to organise a parish meeting, but we've actually said to them, well, he doesn't need a parish meeting. All he needs is comments to be fed back to the clerk, or even direct for that matter. So those of you who have had the survey, please complete it. If you know about Haverhill, complete it. If you know about Clare or wherever else, please fill it. We need as much information as possible. If you visit other markets outside West Suffolk, please comment on those as well. Take photos and all that sort of stuff, always handy, especially if there's things that you like about the market or don't like about the market. The idea is ultimately, we hope we're going to do things for the markets across West Suffolk that would not only benefit the markets but the towns they're in, the people who live there, the businesses that are there, and everything else. So please do that. But I'll go on to Colin now about the actual parish council survey.
So there's a range of questions asking in terms of satisfaction with the location of the market, the timings of the market, the frequency, the availability of transport to get to and from the market, range of visitors within it, goods that are for sale, availability of card or contact payments, ease of getting to and navigating around the market, i.e. signage, etc., and enough space. Same question for people with disabilities, availability of seating, provision of cycle storage, car parking, appearance of the market, cleanliness, COVID-19 safety, variety of food and drink to consume whilst visiting the market, and the communications from it. So I don't know whether there's anyone who feels that they are happy to answer those questions on behalf of the council, or leave it to me to complete. I don't know.
Can I just add, sorry, Colin will probably realise this, that it had my influence in terms of the number of questions in it.
I'm not surprised.
So there are a lot, but I wanted to capture, I've said from day one of the market survey is I want as much information as possible and nothing is off the table. If someone suggests something, however strange it is, let's consider it.
Okay, Councillor Brown and then Councillor Henry.
My big thing would be, it'd be great to have a hopper bus on the market day. Yeah, it'd be great to have one every day, but potentially have one on the market day.
Sorry, John, was there a
Councillor
question?
Henry.
Yeah, I've already filled my survey and sent it in. But yeah, the main thing I complained about was disabled access to the high street. It's very hilly. The only area that's not is where it used to be Argos car park, but that's a private car park with no disabled parking. But that was the main one. Obviously, I think I also mentioned about transport, about there's no buses there is around town because you've got one, the Cambridge one, but there's no around town buses to get to the market. But I think that's the main thing. I did fill the other bits in.
Okay,
That's the main part.
Yeah, thank you. I just wonder whether there's an opportunity somewhere in that to talk about the structure of the management of the market, because when I get a complaint from a trader, it's very difficult because, of course, Gabby reports to Mark and people tell me that she doesn't answer her emails or her phone, and that's a great worry for the traders because they can't get a response back from her. And then, what's her name? Head's gone. Sharon, of course, reports to Julie Baird. So we've got this division in the management structure, and therefore people in the management don't seem to quite know what's going on. And I just wonder whether that could be or should be streamlined, really, because I think from a market trader's point of view, we really need to have a clear communication vehicle, and it's certainly, I can tell you, it's absolutely not clear now. Because I have to dance around it all the time trying to get answers, and it's not very even from a councillor.
Item, Mayor's report. To receive a report from the Mayor. So I did forward that via email, so you should have all had that. Obviously the main key event was the Women's Tour, which was sort of the biggest event we had in recent weeks, and obviously a big event that we've had for the town for many years. So I was very pleased to be part of that, and I know a lot of you attended in various roles, and it was fantastic to see so many people out and about. So that was a highlight for me anyway, probably be a highlight for my mayor's year, I should think, unless something else happens in the meantime. Okay, so yeah, any questions about the mayor's report at all before I move on? Yep, Councillor Mark.
Would it be possible to have a civic list in West Suffolk? A civic list goes out just to say what's going to happen, because people might want to attend some of it, you know, because it's not all closed off, you know, it's not all individual things, but some of them are public things. It would be really quite nice to have a forward plan of what you're going to be doing.
Okay.
So that we can see that. Thank you.
So bring that along to these meetings and say, you know, as part of my report, this is what's planned for the next
Well, it'd be quite
few
nice
weeks.
to have it just sent out really on a monthly basis. I mean, what Ruth does is she just sends it out on a monthly basis, as I think she calls it a civic list, and she just sends out anywhere that, you know, that
It's similar to what the Queen's going to be doing, isn't it? I'm not that important.
Yeah, because it's not all just going to one thing. People can attend quite a lot of the things that you attend, if they knew they were on. Because often it can be.
Okay, lovely, yeah, thank you. Okay then, so going on to item 10, One Haverhill Partnership, to receive a report from the clerk on matters relating to One Haverhill Partnership, a draft and a new business plan. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so you have in front of you a copy of the questions that went out to members of the board. Obviously, some members of the board are sitting here. It's I think 10 of them. And I thought it might be, if councillors wanted, I'd forward that survey on to all of you as well, to have the opportunity to answer the questions yourselves as people who know the community. And it's basically, as well as working on data-led things that might need addressing, what's equally important is local knowledge of what things might need addressing. So if, obviously if you're a board member anyway, you've already been sent this, but if not, it would be useful for other councillors to also complete something. So if there's any community-led schemes you think would be worth supporting through One Haverhill, that gets put into the mix as far as the One Haverhill business plan is concerned.
Okay, so will you be forwarding to other council?
If people are happy for me to forward it, I will know the councillors are interested.
Has One Haverhill done a review of the current or old business plan? Have we completed everything on it?
We are in the process of doing that as part of this new business plan. As most business plans, the first half of it, looking back on what happened, but in turn, I know from my involvement in it that one of the drivers for needing a new business plan is that they've either been delivered or approving undeliverable in the current through the current format. So there's some things which were there, which they're still sitting there and just haven't been done. And the question has to be is, are those bits of that business plan actually ever going to be achieved? And if the answer is no, then there's no point having them in the business plan. If the answer is yes, then they need fresh impetus to get them done.
Okay, Councillor Mason?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to phrase this. I received an email from Ian Gallen that talks about regular updates being given to One Haverhill about projects. And for me, the paragraph at the top of this kind of abdicates a sense of vision that I would be looking for One Haverhill to have in terms of having an aspiration. Haverhill is the fourth largest town in Suffolk. If there's going to ever be an organisation that is going to be the voice for Haverhill, I would have thought it would be the One Haverhill Partnership. And I found the language in that top part kind of abdicated responsibility for being a voice whilst not necessarily being able to deliver. One Haverhill is a consultee and is often used as a consultee. Well, in terms of definitely the combined services hub that may be talked about or maybe developed at some point. Because, you know, as I said, the email that I received is One Haverhill Partnership is receiving regular updates. So in terms of it being a consultee, it does have a voice for Haverhill. And for me, what is the vision of how Haverhill is going to develop? And the business plan, whilst absolutely should be about achievable projects, but what other forum have we got for people talking about what Haverhill actually needs in terms of some of the bigger projects. Maybe I'm missing the point. Do you want me to?
No, that's fine.
The observation I'd make is One Haverhill is a partnership of other bodies, so it's difficult for One Haverhill to start lobbying itself. So the voice of the people of Haverhill, you are representatives, elected representatives, either at county, district or town level. So in terms of representation and the people who's the voice of Haverhill, that's the responsibility of individual partners. The difficulty is always with One Haverhill. It's one thing for One Haverhill to act as a way of consulting with the public, such as a master plan, but for One Haverhill to form its own opinions on what the county council is doing when the county council is part of it, or what the NHS is doing when the NHS is part of it. I think the individual constituents are, at the end of the day, they can speak for themselves. So the town council might want to comment adversely, for instance, on county council's performance of highways, but you're not going to have the county council sign up to a criticism of itself, which effectively, as the partnership would require that. So we always try and not portray One Haverhill Partnership as a body in its own right. And I know, for instance, the survey that went out on the High Street, I really didn't want it to have One Haverhill's logo in amongst the partners, as if it was as if you could join One Haverhill and it could have its own opinion on whatever it liked, because the whole point is it's everyone joining together and doing something rather than having a life of its own. And because would you have One Haverhill take an opposite view to the town council on a matter? I don't think you would be at all pleased.
Councillors want this forwarded to them at all, this survey? Or, yeah, those that aren't on the board? Yeah, is that a yes or?
Yeah.
Okay, perhaps we can do that then. Thank you. Was that the only item on that?
Yeah, it was really.
Okay. Okay, then, so we're going to item 11, the adoption of committee reports. So we have the Planning Working Party to move the adoption of the minutes of the Planning Working Party meetings and the recommendations contained therein. It says held the 5th and 19th of October, but we've only got the 5th at the moment, so we're deferring the 19th of October one until the next meeting. Okay, so do I have a proposer to accept those? Councillor Hanlon, seconder. Councillor Smith, and all in favour? Thank you. Right, so the next one, Personnel Working Party. To move the adoption of the redacted minutes of the Personnel Working Party held 21st of October. Again, that is to follow. We haven't had that as yet. Although I will mention that it was really just to recommend the Working Party the appointment of a new chair. Okay, so that will be in the minutes to follow, which you say.
But it's a recommendation to full council, and we don't really need to see the minutes. I can tell you that the recommendation of the Working Party, as Councillor Fox has stepped down as chair but remains a member, the Working Party is proposing that the Mayor becomes chair of the Personnel Committee, Personnel Working Party. So you can still, it's your decision who's chair of it. So there's actually no reason why you can't do that piece of work. You don't need to read the minutes to hear that.
Okay, so they can vote on that now?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a proposer and seconder to accept that. Proposer Councillor Burns,
Yep.
Seconder Councillor Hanlon, all in favour? Thank you. Thank you. Okay then. So item 12, financial matters, to authorise the following payment list. Can I have a proposer for that? Councillor Roach and then Councillor McManus, seconder, and all in favour? Thank you. Again, the numbering seems out. We've gone to C.
It's automatic number. Where it fits be.
Oh, anyway, C as it on there. To receive a report from the RFO on the financial position of the council as at the end of month 6, September 2021. So you should have had this today, I believe.
It's also in front of you as well.
And it's in front of us. So, if you talk us through it.
In terms of the numbers, you can see that the last column shows the variance of where we are. The total variance is that we're 82,928 less spent than the budget predicted we would be at this point. But if you read the narrative that goes with it, you'll see that that is somewhat flattered by the inclusion of nearly £60,000 of ring-fence funding under the additional revenue grant to spend in the High Street. So that money will all be gone by March 31st. So it can't be spent on other town council stuff. So there's actually only about £22,000.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Okay. I just wonder, do we keep any breakdown of demographic groups that have not been coming back? I mean, is there any particular vulnerable group that haven't returned, which we should be perhaps targeting any advertising towards?
At the moment, we understand it's older people who are not returning, but yes, Sarah has all that information, so we know precisely who comes, how often they come, what sort of thing they come to, and we know whether or not those individuals and that kind of demographics are not coming back. So yes, we can look at that. It's not just reluctance of people, we also have to have product to sell, and at the moment, and I think by the next financial year it should be resolved as long as things don't start going backwards. But there aren't a lot of films out at the moment. Obviously James Bond is a big thing, we will have that soon, but we always follow on behind others. But a lot of films, of course, went straight to streaming. So we're not actually able to programme a full kind of cinema and theatre list at the moment anyway. National Theatre Live, in terms of starting to beam stuff, well, that will come, but of course they have to do all the rehearsals and get to the point where they can actually perform it before they can stream it. So theatre was always going to be several months behind everything else. In terms of bookings at the Leyston, again, we need to market that again because we've lost some groups, and we need to be a little bit careful because we have had instances where people have booked just one short session a fortnight on a key evening and taken that evening out. So in terms of whether we would welcome that booking back again, when actually it costs us more money, because it would be better if we could actually hire that out for somebody who'd use it every single week and for say 3 hours, rather than one person hiring it out every fortnight for 1 hour. So it's all these sorts of things to juggle as people come back. And things like, for instance, I know the martial arts people have not come back to Leyston Centre. There's a few groups that we need to backfill. And there's one of the dance groups in Haverhill has folded as well.
So, in terms of live performances, are we sort of booking things that people, things that normally a certain age group might come to, because they're not coming out, we're not getting the ticket sales. So are we actually sort of putting the right things on? Does that make sense?
The thing is that assumes we know the answer to the question in terms of what will attract people out. So that's Nick's territory in terms of programming, and he's programming a long way into 2022 to try and make sure his successor
doesn't find themselves with a blank sheet. But yeah, it's difficult because it's the people being ready to come out and start touring again, the people wanting to come and see it, and all the rest. So it's that slow winding up. I can imagine why costs are beginning to go up, and we're seeing that across different sectors as well, where people are seeing it hasn't just switched on like switching on the light, which is probably very appropriate tonight, but it's coming in dribs and drabs.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Furman.
We've got an event booked up in November, Stanley Serve. We've sold 220 tickets already. 45% of people sold tickets to over 50. So I don't think it's the individual. I mean, it's going to be hard now, because a lot of people are already come out. I've booked up 3 events next year with Nick. I won't bother doing anything, but if you want my services, I offer them free of charge. I'm quite experienced in the phone, things like that. If you want to be a hand, put some events. I don't mind at all, because I always sell out. Always.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Furman. Okay, any other questions? No?
Can I say that I'm trying to think which councillor came. I remember being told a councillor came in to look at the bank statements.
I did. Yes,
that was you, was it, Councillor Roach? So yes, so you've signed the bank statements to say they match.
Yes.
Have you finished your bit?
So if there's any other questions anyone has on any remaining parts, but obviously the theme continues. There is an electrical fault which is somehow, there's some interference which is firing the wireless controls on the lighting service.
It's also affecting
The convection section.
Whether the two are connected.
well, happens every
The lighting test work just fine.
I've been alright for a little while, and now it's got to make a problem.
Okay, so we'll go on to where are we?
Right, so
Okay.
we're on to
Just want to see. Okay, so go on to item D. To note the conclusion of the external audit report attached, and that this has been correctly displayed on our notice board and website in accordance with the regulations. So you should have, you got it here.
yes, you have that in your pack.
Okay.
Just in terms of resolution to note that it's been received.
Okay, so we're just noting.
No resolution to note.
Okay, so can we have a proposal for that? Councillor Roach, seconded Councillor McManus, and all in favour? Okay, so then item E is to appoint groundwork to work with us to produce a spatial plan for the Chalkston open space at a cost of £1,500. The proposal is attached and give delegated authority to the Energy and Sustainability Working Party to agree the details. So we want to talk about that?
I don't know whether it's fairly self-explanatory. I know Council is aware that we have the Chalkston open space, but the thing that's been stopping us is we've had several people who've offered as volunteers to do this piece of work, but actually then balked at doing it when they've realised exactly what it entails. Groundwork are our partners for a number of sustainability things. And so this is a professional landscape architect to come out to assist in the spatial use, but also to be able to cover, what grows best where, what would work well, and they've done these things. If you go onto their website, you can see they've done these things up and down the country.
Okay, so Councillor Roach.
Yeah, the only thing I see on that is a concern is the last identification of urban sports park, wheeled sports, parkour and shelter. I know it's probably well over a year now when we had that consultation, when we were up there and we looked at the site. That was never in there. It concerns me that for that piece of ground that we've got, you're not going to fit that in with all the other things, and I think it's a clash. So the exec that we really want there, when we've got lots of other places in town, that we can try to do that.
Well, the council's already resolved to do that investigation on that site. So what you went to was supposed to be a consultation on a small piece of the ground here for what was originally Rainbow Garden, but the person carrying out the consultation went way beyond their brief for what they were asked to do, and ended up with a whole load of people who were there wanting to talk about a garden project, and probably not surprisingly, because there was no representatives from anyone there who was interested in the other uses that were proposed, came out with this, we don't want an urban sports park there. And they weren't supposed to be asked that question. It wasn't their place to give an opinion, and there was nobody, there were no young people, there was nobody there from people who take part in wheel sports. So there is a separate consultation with young people, but this landscape architect will actually answer your question, which is there enough space for it? Because if the answer is no, there isn't, then we know we need to find somewhere else. But as it currently stands, the only thing this council has agreed to go onto this site is the urban sports park.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Mason.
I just wonder, is there any scope for us to revisit that? I mean, the Cleves house is right next to it, and you know, whilst we've discussed that before, is there scope for us discussing that again as to whether that is something that we would want on that locality?
I have to say that the people who at Cleves Place, who were part of the original consultation on this, they like to see and hear young people playing. They want to be able to get into this site themselves, not to do urban sports, I hate to do that, but to get in and use different parts of it. My point is simply that this landscape architect will draw up a set of plans which will show whether or not there is enough space, and then if it allocates some space for it, then you will have the opportunity to discuss whether you like that idea and whether, seeing exactly where it potentially could go, that is a good basis for having a consultation with people to whether that is acceptable as part of the entire mix.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
A quick one on that. If I remember correctly, you speak to Damien Parker at West Suffolk. He was quite amenable for us to also use the ground at the other side of the path.
Yes,
I remember.
yeah.
So
as part of it, to have a consistent plan for the whole area, not giving us that space to do anything with.
Can I just give a comment on what Councillor Brown has just said? Because I was involved with that particular area, getting the CCTV camera that's still there, and all the other facilities there. And there was a lot of people that were worried when the consultation went around about that area. But once it was there, I had no complaints, or anyone, council, West Suffolk Council, never had any complaints whatsoever in that area. The only bone of contention was the shelter for the youngsters there. And, you know, there were complaints about youngsters sitting there. And, you know, it was because people thought that there was drugs being handed around, which wasn't the case, and obviously the police got involved, and they're the ones that got it taken down. So it was all in that area. It was all on hearsay. It was well away from the houses, and even though it was a play area, it was still no complaints whatsoever. So it's, there's a lot of people who think that youngsters are very noisy. They may well be sometimes, shout here and there sometimes, but of an evening, you know, there was no one of an evening because there was no lights. There was a particular one light, but it wasn't very good. You know, there was no floodlights or anything like that. So there was just no problem whatsoever.
Thank you. So can I have a proposal then to appoint Groundwork to work with us to produce us spatial plan for the space and at a cost of 1,500, and also to give delegated authority to the Energy and Sustainability Working Party to agree details. So can I have a proposal for that, please? Councillor Luccarini and then seconded by Councillor Smith. And all in favour? Thank you. Any abstentions or any against? Any against? Okay, so next on the agenda, item F, to note that the clerk and WPS insurance brokers have reviewed the council insurances and Royal & Son Alliance Insurance Company have agreed terms for year 2 of the 3-year agreement.
It's just a note.
Yeah, so it's just a note. Any questions on that? No? Thank you. Okay, so item 13, actions taken under delegated powers. None. To receive any urgent correspondence text? None. Okay, so the dates of the next meetings. Monday the 29th of November at Haverhill Arts Centre, so here in the auditorium, I assume. And Monday the 20th of December at the Leiston Community Centre. Was that the meeting we were going to have?
Freedom. Yeah, it would be good.
Yeah. So on that evening, we will invite those receiving the freedom of the town on that evening, on the Christmas one, the 1 year Christmas. So we hopefully have a little bit of celebration as well.
A few mince pies and a bit of mulled wine perhaps.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Let's dress it up.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I think we also proposed that we have the handing of the badge to the
I'm up at the suit.
to the former mayor, and perhaps have a photo opportunity with the robes and everything as well that we didn't have at the beginning, and perhaps something else with your photo shoot as well. Yeah. Thank you. Okay then, so item 16, to exclude the press and public, to resolve that under Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, the public and representatives of the press and broadcast media be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following items of business, as publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest, as it would undermine the council's ability to have unfettered debate and result in less robust, well-considered or effective policies. So can I have a proposal for that, please? Councillor Roach and then secondly Councillor Marks.